Now to the big story we broke earlier this morning. Despite decades of terror strikes, it is generally acknowledged that the Islamic State had no presence in India. That may be changing now. A report in Hindustan Times Online warns that Khilafah Ansarullah could be the face of Islamic State.
The Islamic State is near collapse in Iraq and Syria. But Kashmir supporters and sympathizers of the group calling themselves Ansarul Khilafah Jammu and Kashmir are stepping up efforts to win adherents, says a news report. They are using an encrypted message service Telegram to disseminate Islamic State propaganda. They are distributing manuals on weapons making. They have called on Jammu and Kashmir police personnel to disobey their officers. They have put out detailed instructions on how to carry out attacks using trucks. They have also identified potential targets. Indian officials insist that the Islamic State has no real presence in India, but a London-based expert tracking online Islamic State activity believes otherwise. Amarnath Amarasingam of the Institute of Strategic Dialogue argues that the interest in Kashmir is very old amongst jihadists, just like their interest in Palestine is old. For them, anywhere they see Muslims suffering is a potential threat of jihad, a place to send help and fight back. Whether it happens is another matter. There is a precedence for Ansarul Khilafah. This was in Kerala when the National Investigations Agency busted a group of 6 men from Kannur district last year. They were plotting Islamic State attacks using Telegram. They had been radicalized online and were led by one Omar al-Hindi. Last Sunday, Ansarul Khilafah paid tribute Sajid Gilkar, a slain terrorist whose body was wrapped in Islamic State flag during his funeral last week. It described him as a mujahid who lived by the flag of Tawheed or monotheism. Ansarul Khilafah has called for uniting all militant groups under one Amir or leader. It called for members who could raise funds. It wanted doctors to treat their injured and scouts to gather intelligence. It renewed its call that the police not target terrorists but only the enemies of Islam. Amar Singham believes that the group should be taken seriously. They could be in touch with the Islamic State in Syria or elsewhere, he has warned, saying, if they are already sharing attack logistics and bomb-making materials, it's only a matter of time before someone takes these steps and carries out something. I hope that law enforcement has infiltrated these online spaces. There's also the point that Pakistan could be infiltrating a new group into Kashmir. There is a view that while an IS-style attack in India might not be imminent, the fact is, with the Islamic State on the retreat in Arab lands, Kashmir could provide a new base. Bureau Report, WION.
Meanwhile, staying put on this story, I'm joined by my colleague Mohammed Saleh. How seriously are we supposed to take this development which has come to the notice of the Indian security force, Mohammed?
Well, Karthikeya, now this is of course a very dangerous development, although we can be fairly certain that this is still in its very nascent stage. The fact of the matter is, despite ISIS being extremely good in the manner in which they carry out their propaganda, India, by and large, had remained immune from the propaganda of the ISIS. But this new outfit, which is an offshoot of the Islamic State, is something very ominous. Because remember, by and large, the struggle in the Kashmir Valley had always remained only a political one. There was not this tilt towards the Islamization, because the manner in which the Islamic State operates is completely different from the outfits which have been operating within the Kashmir Valley. For instance, the Hizbul Mujahideen recently had a fallout with one of their leaders, Zakir Musa, who said that it is not just the political liberation of the Kashmir Valley that he was interested in, but rather the Islamic establishment of the Islamic State, for which some of the other Hizbul leaders said that this is not their agenda whatsoever. But now the Islamic State trying to make inroads into the Kashmir Valley is something which is extremely dangerous. The Indian security establishment will have to perceive and look at this threat very, very seriously. We do not quite know as to how successful the ISIS has been in its propaganda of trying to recruit these young people who may perhaps resort to violence on basis of this propaganda that they may in fact come across. But it is a very serious threat, Kartikeya, something which the Indian security establishment cannot ward off.
Do you think that this will really change the game for the Indian security forces? Because Lashkar-e-Taiba, even other organizations operating from Pakistan, you had that kinship effect. People would go, get radicalized, come back, or Kashmiris across the border. But when we talk about ISIS and Al-Qaeda, we are talking about plain mercenaries inspired by gory visuals of violence, having their own vision of what Islam should be in the world, rather than the way Islam has forged itself through various cultural and ethnic forms throughout the world.
That's exactly correct, Kartikeya. Now, what is important is for us to make a distinction between the struggle that's been going on in the Kashmir Valley, where the Lashkar and the Hizbul are essentially outfits that are sponsored by Pakistan, trained by Pakistan, funded by Pakistan. Now, Pakistan has itself been fighting a battle along the Af-Pak border, where they've had to contend with the elements of the ISIS. Now, the manner in which the ISIS operates is completely different from, let's say, what the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Hizbul Mujahideen would operate. The Hizbul leaders came out and said that, look, the vision which Zakir Musa has got is something which is contradictory to the ideas of the Hizbul Mujahideen. So they rejected that. Now, imagine Hizbul Mujahideen rejecting a call for the establishment of an Islamic Caliphate, because that is what the ISIS would want to do. Let's actually put this in perspective, Kartikeya. The fact of the matter is the ISIS is on the retreat in the Middle East. It is looking for new territories which it could possibly expand and recruit to carry out its activities. And the ISIS is a different animal altogether. It operates very differently. Its objectives are completely different from these other terror outfits. It's more brutal. It's more expansive in terms of the control that it wants to exercise. It's not just spreading terror, but rather to change the way a society operates and works, that ISIS actually, has its agenda. And that is where it's extremely disturbing. The Kashmir Valley has been immune to this kind of Islamization. The struggle, or rather the disturbance that goes on within the Kashmir Valley, has always been a political one, where even, a separatist, violent terror outfit like Hizbul Mujahideen rejects the agenda of the ISIS, which was something that was embraced by Zakir Musa. And this is something which the Indian security establishment will have to look at very, very closely there.
So basically, Mohammed, you're saying that this whole sense of Kashmiriyat is getting replaced with larger pan-Islamic feeling, and that's also having a repercussion in Kashmir, which for past 2 decades were buffered from the developments of West Asia.
That's exactly correct. For the past 2 decades, the Kashmir Valley had been immune to the developments that were taking place in West Asia. But now the elements in West Asia, which have of course been, which have spread an entirely different worldview, where, let's put it this way, to make it very simple, what was happening in Kashmir was essentially a political struggle. But if you bring in this element of Islamization, then it complicates things much more, because what it does is it has a certain appeal where people who perhaps do not understand what it actually means, people who do not understand what ISIS stands for, because let's say, there's nothing Islamic about the Islamic State. It's pretty much anti-Islamic. But because of the manner in which they've been able to somehow, sell their propaganda, they've been able to get recruits. That had not happened in India so far, because India had, to a very large extent, remained immune from the propaganda of ISIS. And this new Ansarul Khilafah is trying to specifically use its propaganda to recruit some misguided youth in the Indian subcontinent, and more so in the Kashmir Valley, to spread ISIS. And that's a disturbing trend. India, which had to a very large extent had been immune to this feeling of pan-Islamic, something which which seeks for the establishment of a caliphate, is perhaps now in danger of being subject to this propaganda, and it now remains to be seen as to how the Indian state actually responds to this.
Thank you, Mohammed. I think that's